I'm Katia Passerini. I'm the Dean of the College of Professional Studies at St. John's University in Queens, New York. And this is Module 10, Social Entrepreneurship Certificate. And we're going to talk about the role of disruptive technology. We have 3 points to cover today. The first point is really understanding that good companies focus on sustaining technologies, and by doing so, they leave market opportunity open. And those market opportunities may actually be taken by disruptive technologies that can actually displace established companies. And finally, we will come to social entrepreneurship because we will see that through social entrepreneurship, disruptive innovation and disruptive technology might actually displace some of the current market. Just to give you a frame of reference, a lot of this discussion is really based on the work that Clayton Christensen did at Harvard University. He wrote a very famous book that then has been reprinted and adapted in many different industries. And this book is The Innovator's Dilemma, when new technology causes great firms to fail. We adapted this also to the education sector, to the healthcare industry. It's a fantastic reading and a must for anyone who wants to learn about entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship and also good business management. The main discussion in this book is really about understanding why companies such as Sears, DEC, Digital Equipment Corporation, Xerox, IBM were able to be very successful in many areas, but then all of a sudden they missed very important technology successes. Let me give you an example. I'm sure that you're familiar with a lot of these incorrect predictions. If you think about the telephone, Western Union internal memo in 1876 said, "This telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. The device is inherently of no value to us." What about that for a misprediction? For the computer, I'm sure you know Thomas Watson, founder of IBM, had said, "I think there is a market for about 5 computers." And DEC, Digital Equipment Corporation, in 1977, Ken Olsen, the president and founder of DEC, said, "There is really no reason why one person will want a computer in their home." I wish that was true today. And then finally, the radio. Associates of Cernoff Corporation, they made a statement that said, "The wireless music box has no imaginable commercial value. Who would want to pay for a message sent to nobody in particular?" So if you look at these 3 technologies, you see that when they came in, nobody really understood the potential of the market. And that's what we're trying to discuss today. Why did companies that were very good miss those market opportunities, at least at the beginning? And there are really fundamentally 4 reasons. Good companies do apply management techniques very well. So what do? They listen, they invest, they seek, and they target the market that they're familiar with. So they listen to the customers that they already have. They invest in technological improvement in the lines that the customer wants. What they already know, what they're already working on, they will improve it because that way the customers will continue to buy the newer releases of the same products. Why do they do that? Because usually those customers are very large customers and there are very high margin in these industries where the products are continuously being improved and bought again and again. And finally, good companies and large companies like the ones that we just mentioned, the Xerox, the DEC, and the IBM of the world, they really target generally larger market rather than smaller ones. And this is because generally the margins in those markets are higher and they need to sustain large margins to be able to continue to grow. What they really need to start thinking though, and if you look at this cartoon, you'll see really a snapshot of what we're thinking here, is they really need to start thinking about innovation, and especially disruptive innovation. So let me read this cartoon for you. Dogberg says, "To survive, you must create disruptive innovations that redefine the market." And then his boss asks, "Does that mean the same thing as sell things that people want?" And there is a question mark there. Are we selling things that people want? Well, The problem with disruptive technology is that at the very beginning, we really don't understand if people want disruptive technologies or not, because they're very unique. In fact, what happens most of the times, we really don't see that people want this technology. And the reason is because if you look at the way Clayton research is organized, it really differentiates two different types of technology. One that we call sustaining, and the other one that we call disruptive. The sustaining technology is a product that you already have, all the customers are buying it, it's expensive to bring to market, so the company has made a lot of investment in developing this product. It doesn't necessarily have to be just an incremental improvement. It can also be a leap jump in the performance of that specific technology, but you're still within that existing technology and that existing market. Disruptive technology really, generally, look at very different markets because they underperform existing technology. Who want to buy today a wired phone as opposed to having a wireless phone? What would be the reason for that? There is already a technology that is superior than what a company is currently using. And so usually those technologies are under-observed and under-exploited because the customers that will want that specific technology are fewer. Maybe only the crazy one will want to go back, right, in technology. And they really bring a different value or value proposition to those who use them. Now, the nuance of this is, though, that while the big firms will focus on the big technologies, entrant firms, new firms, now have an opportunity to come in and start developing these little disruptive technologies that, when they're born, they're very small. So if you think about the dilemma here is you have an established organization who wants to operate at the curve. If you look at this at the slides, this red line on the top. An existing firm will always want to operate at the level that exceeds the best performance in the market. And then you have a disruptive technology coming in that actually, at the very beginning, gives a performance that is really below the minimum acceptable level of performance that the customer will want to buy. So you have a very little market. But then as you start improving it and improving it and improving it at lower cost and with a different value proposition, then what happens is actually over time this technology may actually even overcome the benefits of the established technology. So let me give you some food for thought. Look at the technologies that you see in the slides. Microsoft development of Internet Explorer. Open source software like Linux came in for free, maybe not as good as existing operating systems, and yet it really revolutionized a market. Fuel-efficient cars and electric cars. We're laughing today, right? Oh, the performance is not great. And yet, just in a couple of years or 2-3 years, we see the performance of some of these cars really becoming comparable to standard cars at lower cost and with a very different value propositions. And then let's think, we talked about the personal computer coming in the home, online banking also revolutionized another industry, education via the internet. We started laughing when it came out. Who would want to really trade off the classroom experience for staying online in front of a computer? And now it's booming with MOOCs and the like. The market for these technologies that start as disruptive, while it's initially very small, it actually tends to increase exponentially very quickly. And so what you see here in this slide is a study from McKinsey on the actual potential of a lot of new technology by 2025 in terms of market size. It's in the trillions of dollars. And the technologies that you see there, mobile internet, Internet of Things, cloud, energy storage, 3D printing, that now we are still trying to grasp what do we really use it for, will escalate and really become another disruptive technology. So if you think about what happens to books and libraries, nobody really uses physical books anymore. Will we continue to use desktops, or will there be something else in the mobile internet space that we will start using? That is what disruptive technology do. Those are the questions that you have to answer when you think about what market strategy you want to use. Now, there is also a dilemma, and as anyone who studies any phenomenon, in research, there are a lot of critics that says this is nothing new, and it's not true that those big companies have really failed because they didn't recognize the technology. They recognized them, but they actually decided not to jump on the market right away, because companies always have choices, and they can look at a potential new application and say, I want to pursue it and put money into it, or maybe, no, I'm going to wait, I'm going to be a laggard, and I'm going to invest money in this technology only when it's already a little bit more solid and I don't have to troubleshoot all the failure. So fundamentally, companies have choices, and some of those companies that we mentioned at the beginning just made different choices. But yet there is also another problem that we have to take into account. It's really fundamentally not an issue of choice and understanding whether the market exists or it doesn't exist, but it's also an issue of culture of the organization and ability of an organization to change. What Clayton Christensen says a lot, it's really when you see those technology, you really need to be able to change your strategy in a way that sometimes is not really ideal, because it's not really the modus operandi of a large organization, which has a lot of standard processes and procedures. So some organizations might not be able to embrace established technology and the operational procedures that you have to use when you bring new disruptive technology in the market as quickly as needed. And so what he actually says is, if you really want to deal with disruption effectively, the best way and the best companies that have been able to even jump in this new market is those who really understood that you couldn't operate as business as usual. So while you have the main part of your organization and processes working on sustaining technology, you have to create an independent unit, a unit that you really manage by new rules. You have maybe distributed teams, you have new employees, new contract forms, new operational procedures, and you create them independently of your main structure so that they can play with the technology. They can troubleshoot all the issues that come with new and not mature technology. They can fail very quickly, and they can really spend some more time pivoting and understanding the market. So if you detach those two organizations, it's not that only new and entrant small businesses are the ones who are destined to really thrive with disruptive technologies. Everyone can do it as long as they understand that the rules of the games are different and the operational procedures are different. Now, I want to go back now and tie this discussion to social entrepreneurship, because that's what we're studying today. So how does social entrepreneurship really come in when we talk about disruptive technology and disruptive innovation? Social entrepreneurship, if you look at it, the main focus is really this process of recognizing critical social needs and finding innovative way to create both social and economic value. You need economic value to be able to sustain the organization, but then really your main goal is that of social change and societal transformation. So, for example, I'm sure we already discussed in other sections the Millennium Development Goals and these lofty goals and values that we want to pursue with social entrepreneurship. And if you look at it, you need the economic value. If you look at this side, the economic sustainability side, you need to generate revenue to be able to be socially responsible, to be able to do or be involved with charity. You can create a lot of resources and then focus on social entrepreneurship goal. Or you might decide that your main goal is really to be a social enterprise. So you don't focus too closely on revenue, but you really focus on your social goal and social sustainability goals. If you take that route, if you decide, I really don't care about the revenue side of the picture, I want to be really creating value for society, here is what happens to you. At the very beginning, you will be ignored. Why? Because you'll be behaving very much as a disruptive technology that is entering the market. You're producing good enough products for the underserved. You use resources creatively in ways that are unattractive to others. You're not claiming that you're going to make a lot of revenue, so that's really unattractive for the traditional entrepreneurial market. And sometimes you will be ignored, disparaged, and maybe others will say, yes, you focus on that, and I will focus on creating revenue in other ways, and I will donate it for different causes and organizations. So what happens is you're really operating at a different level of the market, and the larger organization will not bother you because you're really playing at a segment that it's not really attractive to them. But then maybe, just because of your mission of systemic social change, you're starting to attract a movement. People will want to work with you, and they might maybe trade off very lofty salary with the mission, your social mission of systemic change. And in fact, what you see in a lot of social entrepreneurship, there is now an ecosystem of players and agencies, non-profit organizations, venture philanthropists, and partnership between the public and the private that have actually decided, yes, this is something that we want to focus on. And now also the business community is really paying attention to this phenomenon. So what you need in this new environment is a different set of skills than the one that you traditionally apply to entrepreneurship. You need to really challenge traditional thinking, because what you're saying is, I really want to focus on things that don't give me the highest level of return. You have to work with people that have a very strong sense of morality, commitment to help those in need, a social mission, and those are really sometimes attributes that are in conflict with the ability to be successful in business. You really want to be able to create social impact, and you must, to do that, you have to have very low income expectations. You're not going to launch the next company that is going to give you the billions dollars mansion with the swimming pool. You're just trying to affect a very small part of society, but maybe you'll be able to create a movement that will have ripple effect. And then your also business plan has to be feasible, has to be flexible, and has to be maybe less anchored to the traditional business numbers. And I would submit that these are the skills that the students that we have today in our classroom, we need to make sure that they understand and they're gaining in the classroom. But why do we do all of that? And why do we think students will care and people will continue to follow? I have to go back to the beginning when we talked about Clayton Christensen, who was extremely successful with his 1997 book, and he developed this topic in many different areas, including one that is very important to us. He wrote a book that is called How Will You Measure Your Life, where he actually submits to you that some of those social impact principles might actually be more important than the business principle that we're very familiar with from business school. And that's why maybe just today we start seeing a lot of social entrepreneurship becoming so common in many different environments, business schools, but even beyond business schools and typical management education, but in any different type of learning organizations that we deal with. That is why, most likely, you're working on this social entrepreneurship certificate, because you're dealing with students, the millennials today in the classroom, that are motivated not just by profit, but by meaning. They want to make a difference. And so even if it's difficult today to enter this new market, because the career opportunities today and the prospects for growth are very low, tomorrow those prospects will abound. So if you focus on social innovation and systemic social change, maybe you are the next disruptor that will bring along a movement of the new generations, and maybe, just maybe, will change the world. So I want to summarize what we discussed. We started with this notion of sustaining technology and how good companies thrive in markets by focusing on sustaining technologies, but they might leave opportunities for other market entrants open. So what generally happens, some new disruptive technology find their own way, and they destabilize the existing organization, established companies, and they become themselves larger companies able to bring this new disruptive technology to the markets. And then finally, we look at how social entrepreneurship itself might open a path to disruptive technology and disruptive innovation, and by opening this path, might actually bring along a new workforce, a new generation of learners who want to be engaged with systemic social change. Thank you very much.